There is a cruel habit the world has. It celebrates greatness only after greatness has already suffered. People applaud the champion, but they rarely see the lonely child, the hungry nights, or the years spent wondering if the dream would ever come true. Long before millions knew the name Sylvester Stallone, he was simply another boy, trying to find a place in a world that had already decided who he was. He entered the world under difficult circumstances. During his birth, complications damaged nerves in his face. The result was permanent. One side of his face drooped. His speech became slurred. Even his famous voice, the voice recognized across the globe, was born from pain. Children can be merciless. Many laughed at him. Others mocked the way he spoke. Teachers doubted him. People assumed that someone who looked different could never become a leading actor. Without realizing it, they were trying to write his story before he had even learned to hold the pen. Life has a dangerous way of doing that. It introduces you to failure before introducing you to your purpose. Many people mistake those early defeats for the final chapter. Stallone refused to. His childhood was filled with instability. His parents argued constantly. Their relationship eventually collapsed. The home, that should have felt safe, often felt uncertain. When life becomes difficult at an early age, a person usually travels down one of two roads. The first road leads to excuses. The second leads to resilience. Every great story begins with that choice. The Stoics believe that fate gives every person two things: events, which cannot always be controlled, and responses, which always belong to us. Young Sylvester could not control how people judged him. He could not change the injury he was born with. He could not erase the insults. But slowly, without even realizing it, he began developing something far more valuable: endurance. While others laughed, he learned to keep moving. While others doubted, he quietly dreamed. The world often misunderstands people who refuse to surrender. It mistakes persistence for stubbornness, but history remembers them differently. History remembers the ones who refuse to accept the labels placed upon them. Machiavelli once observed that fortune favors those prepared to seize opportunity. But before opportunity arrives, character must already exist. Character is not built the day success appears. It is built when nobody is watching, when nobody believes, when nobody applauds. As Stallone grew older, his love for storytelling began to grow. Movies became more than entertainment. They became possibility. Every film whispered the same question: what if your life could become something greater? Most people silence that question immediately. It could never happen to me. I wasn't born talented enough. I don't have the right connections. I'm too different. Those thoughts destroy dreams long before reality ever has the chance. Stallone chose another response. Instead of asking, "Why me?" he quietly began asking, "Why not me?" That single change in perspective would one day transform his life. Yet dreams alone have never changed the world. Action does. As a young man, he chased acting jobs with relentless determination. Again and again, doors closed in his face. Auditions ended in rejection. Casting directors looked at his face, heard his voice,
and dismissed him almost immediately. Some even told him, "You don't have the look. You don't have the voice. You'll never make it." Imagine hearing those words, not once, but hundreds of times. How many people would continue? How many would keep believing? Most would quietly return home, convincing themselves that the critics were right. After all, if enough people repeat the same lie, it begins sounding like truth. But Stallone held on to something that no rejection could steal. Hope. Not blind hope. Determined hope. The kind of hope that wakes up after failure, dusts itself off, and knocks on one more door. Ancient wisdom teaches that the strongest swords are forged through relentless fire. Without the fire, the steel remains ordinary. Perhaps those endless rejections were never meant to destroy him. Perhaps they were preparing him for the role that would one day inspire millions. Because sometimes life delays your victory, not to punish you, but to prepare you. And for Sylvester Stallone, the hardest days were still ahead.
The world often tells you, if it is meant to happen, it will happen easily. History says otherwise. Every meaningful dream demands a price. For Sylvester Stallone, that price became almost unbearable. The auditions continued. The rejections multiplied. Days turned into months, months into years. Every no chipped away at his confidence, but never completely destroyed it. He found small acting jobs here and there, just enough to survive, never enough to truly live. Bills piled higher. Hope grew thinner. There came a time when he had almost nothing left. No successful career, no security, no certainty that tomorrow would be better than today. Poverty is a strange teacher. It doesn't only empty your pockets, it tests your spirit. It asks one painful question: how badly do you want this dream? Many people answer that question with surrender, not because they're weak, but because suffering eventually becomes exhausting. Stallone understood exhaustion. There were days when he barely had enough money to eat, days when the future looked completely empty. He walked the streets of New York, wondering if he had been foolish to believe in himself. The city around him moved with endless energy. People hurried to work. Taxi horns echoed through the streets. Lights filled the night, yet inside, he felt completely alone. No applause, no opportunities, only silence. Sometimes life becomes quiet, not because it has forgotten you, but because it is preparing something you cannot yet see. Then came one of the darkest moments of his life. His financial situation became so desperate that he was forced to make an impossible decision. He had Agog, his loyal companion, one of the few sources of comfort during those difficult days, but he could no longer afford to feed him. Imagine that moment, holding the leash, knowing you love your friend, yet having nothing left to give. With a heavy heart, he sold his dog for a small amount of money, not because he wanted to, because survival demanded it. Years later, people would celebrate his success. Very few knew that before becoming famous, he had lost something that meant more to him than money. Life has a way of breaking your heart before revealing your purpose. Most people would have accepted defeat. After all, what more could be taken? Yet fate often arrives when hope seems weakest. One evening, Stallone sat watching a boxing match. Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champion, facing Chuck Wepner. No one expected Wepner to last. He was the underdog, the man everyone believed would quickly lose. But something extraordinary happened. Wepner refused to quit. He kept getting back up, round after round, punch after punch. The world watched in disbelief. He wasn't supposed to survive that long. He wasn't supposed to challenge the champion, but he did. That fight lit a fire inside Stallone. For the first time in months, his imagination became louder than his fear. He saw something bigger than boxing. He saw himself, a man the world had already counted out, a man with nothing except the refusal to surrender. He rushed home, locked himself away, and began writing, hour after hour, page after page, ignoring hunger, ignoring exhaustion, ignoring doubt. The words poured onto the paper as if they had been waiting their entire lives to escape. In only a few days, the first draft of Rocky was complete. It wasn't just a screenplay. It was his own life, disguised as fiction. Every rejection, every failure, every ounce of hope, every reason to quit lived inside those pages. Ancient philosophers believed that suffering could either destroy a person or transform them. The difference was never the suffering itself. It was what the person chose to create from it. Stallone chose to create hope. He had no idea that the script lying on his table would one day inspire millions across the world. But one challenge remained, perhaps the greatest challenge of all. Hollywood wanted his story, just not him.
Hollywood wanted his story, just not him. The script for Rocky began making its way through film studios. For the first time in years, people were saying something different. This is brilliant. This could be a great movie. We want it. Imagine how that must have felt. After years of rejection, the world was finally paying attention. The phone began ringing. Producers made offers. Money. More money than Stallone had ever seen in his life. For a man who had struggled to buy food, who had sold his beloved dog just to survive, it must have felt like a miracle. Most people would have accepted immediately. Who could blame them? Poverty changes the way you think. When you've spent nights wondering where your next meal will come from, security becomes irresistible. The studios had one condition. They loved the script, but they refused to let Stallone play Rocky. You don't look like a movie star. Your voice isn't right. No audience will believe in you. They wanted a famous actor instead. They offered him more money if he simply handed over the script and walked away. Think about that moment. Your bank account is almost empty. Your dream is finally within reach. All you have to do is give it away. Many people confuse opportunity with temptation. Not every offer is meant to be accepted. Sometimes life places comfort in front of you to see whether you'll abandon your purpose. Machiavelli understood that power belongs to those who refuse to surrender what matters most. A person who sells his vision too quickly often spends the rest of his life wondering, what if I had believed in myself just a little longer? Stallone looked at the offers. The money could solve every immediate problem. He could finally eat without worrying, pay his bills, sleep peacefully. But every time he imagined another actor becoming Rocky, something inside him refused. He had not written someone else's story. He had written his own. Rocky Balboa wasn't just a character. He was every rejection, every insult, every lonely night, every impossible dream. No one else could understand him because no one else had lived him. Again and again, Stallone said no. The producers couldn't believe it. A struggling actor rejecting life-changing money? To them, it made no sense. But history rarely understands conviction until after it succeeds. Eventually, the studios made another offer. Far less money than before, only a fraction of what they had originally promised. But this time, they accepted one condition. Sylvester Stallone would play Rocky. He didn't become rich that day. In fact, he sacrificed a fortune. But he gained something priceless: the chance to prove himself. The Stoics believe that character is revealed when comfort competes with purpose. Comfort whispers, "Take the easy road." Purpose quietly replies, "Not yet." That decision changed everything. The cameras rolled. The small-budget film began production. Nobody expected greatness. The budget was tight. The schedule was demanding. The odds were against them. But perhaps that was exactly how it was supposed to be. Because Rocky was never meant to be a story about perfection. It was a story about refusing to stay down. And so was Stallone. Then came a moment that revealed the kind of man he truly was. With the money he finally earned, he searched for the dog he had been forced to sell. Days passed. Then one day, he found him. He paid far more than he had received just to bring his loyal friend home. To many people, it seemed like an emotional decision. To Stallone, it was a promise fulfilled. Success had not changed his heart. It had simply given him the ability to keep a promise that poverty had once stolen. Sometimes, the greatest measure of success is not the size of your house or the number in your bank account. It is whether success has made you forget the person you used to be. For Stallone, the greatest fight was about to begin. Because soon, the world would meet Rocky Balboa, and nothing would ever be the same again.
The world finally believed. There comes a moment when years of silent struggle are finally seen by the world, not because you suddenly became extraordinary, but because the world finally caught up to the person you had already become. When Rocky was released, almost no one expected what happened next. It wasn't backed by the biggest budget. It didn't have the most famous actors. It wasn't supposed to become legendary. Yet something about the story touched millions. People didn't just see a boxer. They saw themselves. They saw every dream that had been laughed at, every person who had been underestimated, every soul that had been knocked down by life and forced to choose between surrender and one more round. Because Rocky was never really about boxing. It was about refusing to stay on the ground. The film became an extraordinary success. Audiences around the world embraced it. Critics praised it. It received multiple Academy Award nominations and won the Oscar for Best Picture. The man who had once been told, "You'll never make it," was suddenly standing among Hollywood's greatest. But success did not erase his past. It gave meaning to it. Every rejection, every insult, every empty pocket, every lonely night, every closed door had become part of the story that inspired millions. The Stoics believed that obstacles are not placed in our path to stop us. They are placed there to reveal who we are capable of becoming. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the obstacle itself becomes the way. Stallone lived those words long before he ever read them. The very things that made people reject him became the reasons people remembered him. His unique voice became unforgettable. His determined expression became iconic. His life became proof that imperfections do not prevent greatness. Sometimes they create it. Machiavelli once observed that fortune smiles upon those prepared to act when opportunity arrives. But opportunity means little if courage is absent. Imagine if Stallone had sold his script. Imagine if he had accepted comfort instead of conviction. Rocky would still have existed, but the world might never have known the man who created him. One decision, one refusal to quit, one act of believing in himself changed everything. That is how history is written, not through luck, but through choices. Years later, people celebrated Stallone as a legend. They admired his success, his movies, his achievements. But legends are never built in moments of applause. They are built in moments when nobody is watching. When you choose discipline over distraction, hope over despair, persistence over comfort, the greatest victories are always invisible before they become visible. Think about your own life. Perhaps you're standing where Stallone once stood, a dream that feels impossible, people who doubt you, doors that refuse to open, a future hidden behind uncertainty. If so, remember this: the world is full of people who quit one step before their breakthrough, not because they lacked talent, because they believed rejection was the end. It wasn't. Rejection is often life asking one question: how badly do you want it? If your answer is more than my fear, then keep walking, keep learning, keep building, keep believing, because one day someone will call you lucky. They will never see the mornings you refuse to sleep in, the nights you refuse to surrender,
the sacrifices nobody applauded. They will see only the victory. You will remember the journey. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson Sylvester Stallone leaves behind. You don't need the world to believe in you before you begin. You only need enough courage to believe in yourself until the world finally catches up. Welcome to the inner mirror, because every great story begins the same way, with one person
standing alone, choosing not to quit. Until the next reflection, look within.